We're in Knoxville, Tennessee on Meateater's game day. I have with me this panel of expert analysts of college football, duck hunting, CrossFit, country living. We got it all here today, folks. Man, I feel like I'm on ESPN.
Yeah.
We are in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, within sight of where
Neyland
the
Stadium.
Tennessee Vols are going to roll over the Tide here in about 5 or 6 hours. We're at the Meateater Tailgate Tour, which has been a ton of fun. I have a very unique group of guests here with me today. I'll introduce them from right to left. I've got right here Hunter Spencer from Meateater. Man, old Tennessee Vol himself, lives in Virginia.
Yep.
He's spying on them.
Hunter, anything that you see that is graphic design, almost everything is Hunter Spencer, including this cool
Logo?
horn getting grilled. I love
the
that.
horn, baby.
But Hunter's
Bird looks really confused right now.
I thought I was sitting next to Josh Heupel, honestly.
I had that earlier today.
It does look like Josh Heupel. I see Josh Heupel.
I don't even know who that is.
Head coach of the Vols.
Head coach.
Oh, really? The head coach of the Vols.
I thought y'all got him out here.
Well, this is Hunter Spencer.
He's busy.
Here we have Josh Bird.
Bird.
And you work with
He runs
With Rich.
Mayhem Hunt for us. Yep.
Yeah. So I kind of got to introduce you guys together.
In tandem,
This
yeah.
is Rich Froning.
Yep.
Introduced to me as the most fit man in America, which
Formally.
Let's-
I'm retired
let's
now.
go.
Retired now.
let's
So,
go.
Yep.
I want to see you do
not
some
just
push-ups.
America.
In the world.
Hey,
in the world.
World.
In the world.
World.
Oh, are you're being serious?
Formally.
Okay.
Fittest man in the world.
Let's
Formally.
go. Hey, man. Yeah. I love it.
Clay was second.
That's right.
Well, all I was going to say was, we squirrel hunted yesterday, and he couldn't lose me. I could tell he was
Yeah.
trying.
We were just creeping.
Squirrels, too.
Squirrels
No.
too, yeah. Yeah, they lost us.
So, yeah, tell me, how would you introduce yourself?
I competed in CrossFit for 13 years. 13 years if you count COVID. Won a couple times as an individual, won a couple times on a team. Own a CrossFit gym in Cookeville, Tennessee, and now trying to bring fitness to the hunting space. That's our big thing. We got into hunting, real passionate about it, probably the last 10 years. And so, that's what we're doing now.
Awesome.
Love hunting, and so
Hey, let me come back to you guys right after
Brent.
Reaves, and then this guy who's never been, I don't think you've been on the render. This is Garrett Long. Almost everything that's going on at Meateater and even with beargrease, this guy's involved with, but kind of behind the scenes. So I'm really upset that you're here, Garrett.
Really? It's upsetting, huh?
Garrett's like he's my boss.
Yeah.
So
He's running the show.
Man, I think the coolest thing I've done at Meateater, though, is I actually hired Hunter.
really,
Yeah.
he was
That's
your
your highlight?
he was your
He
hire.
all started.
Man.
Wait a minute. You
No.
hired me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do good things.
I agree.
That was calculated.
That was the
So he
best
knows
thing.
what he's doing.
Yeah. No, tell me, like, in the hunting space, it's clear that, in the last at least 10 years, like, fitness has come up
Yep.
on the radar of something that we should all be, as hunters, there's a lot of
prepared.
physicality,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool because I think that the narrative for a lot of the hunting community is not been something, that would be fitness related. And then when we started, Western hunts and elk hunting kind of came onto the scene, and it's like, hey, a big limiting factor of success is just being able to get places. Then you started seeing, people marketing to the hunting community about
space, yeah.
fitness.
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit yesterday. My kind of background is originally I was born in Michigan. I've lived in Tennessee for 30 plus years. So whitetail is kind of, for me, when I started hunting, whitetail was tough because it's sitting still. I have ADHD, or ADD or something. Something's not right. There's something a little off, And so that was
Is that
tough
true,
for me.
Josh?
Yeah.
Something's not right.
Something's not right. And so I got into turkey hunting first, and turkey hunting I fell in love with. And so, it's up, down. We run and gun a lot, in Tennessee. And so somebody introduced me to elk hunting, and from then on I was hooked. And so now I've kind of made it back to now whitetail is a passion too. So in that whole process, I was competing and training, and I'm like, man, there's such a need for a little bit of science-backed hunting fitness preparation. You know, there are some other ones out there and good ones out there, but I feel like we've got 15 years. I was an strength and conditioning coach. I have a degree in exercise science. I've competed for years. And I married the two with a passion that I have hunting in the last, 10 years, I would say, where we got super serious. And then Western hunting in the last 6 or 7 that I've been, like, next level passionate about. So, we just kind of saw the need there. I was like, hey, I'm going to be hunting a lot anyway. I'm going to be doing these workouts to prepare myself for hunting. Why not just offer them to people online? So that's kind of where Mayhem Hunt started. We have CrossFit Mayhem, and we've done that for 12 or 15 years, and we'll still keep that up. But, man, Mayhem Hunt and just hunting has become a huge passion of mine, and I want guys, girls, to never have to question, hey, should I go after that animal because I'm going to have to get it out? Or there's no second thought. When we go out, we're like, all right, I don't care if it's 1,000 feet up. We're going to get there. We're going to get to it and get that animal, and then we're going to get it out. So that's just, we want people more confidence of anything of like, hey, I can go out there and do this, right?
Yeah. To me, the most positive thing about when you're combining physical fitness and then hunting, which we're all passionate about, is like being physically fit is like a good idea for life in general,
Absolutely.
whether you're elk hunting or not. And so it's again just one of those like tangible and positive things that comes from being involved in the outdoors.
Well, and then, there's such a crossover, too, of like, hey, you're harvesting your own meat. It's healthy. We know where it came from. It's not going to a store. It's not overly processed. It's not given all these antibiotics and stuff. So, if we can get this healthy, clean meat and then also fuel ourselves for these, it makes sense. And then, we've talked about it, too. Like, my personality, I'm just a competitor, right? So, like, my whole life has been – I'm one of 32 first cousins on my mom's side. 25 are boys, and everything we did was a competition. And so that's just who I am, right? So I competed for years, and then when I got done, I'm like, man, I still need to compete and still have that. And hunting, we talked about it yesterday, it's the original competition, right? Like us versus that animal. And so for me, I feel like that draw of just the competition side of it is just who I am. And then you got the like team aspect of it. All these guys that go on solo hunts, good for you. I like, if I've got one other person and there's a team and we're kind of like figuring out a plan, there's like there's something to it. And so all of it, what I've done in the past marries super well to what we're doing now. And man, it's just blessed to be where we're at. Man,
That's
I love
awesome,
it.
man.
Love it.
I'm trying to, Garrett, let's combine our heads here. Hunter, Brent.
Okay.
What would you ask the fittest man in the world if he were sitting by you? Like, what intelligent question would you ask them? Like, because
It's going to take all four of us to come up with
here's the
this
best analogy. If I was sitting next to the owner of the finest mule in America, I would have 100 questions for him.
Hey, father of the American mule. Who is it?
George Washington.
Okay, nice. Hey,
Come on, dude.
Sorry,
Come
easy.
on,
That
dude.
was
Who are you
easy.
talking to?
Too
man?
easy. Sorry.
It's like who invented CrossFit?
All right. Great
Bill-
class.
Well, he's
Bill-
already said his motivation, and
Bill
that
CrossFit.
would have been my question.
Motivation.
The motivator. What it
Well,
was.
and the cool part too is my kids. So you guys have seen my kids are around all the time. Bird's kids are out
You
here
got
too.
to be in shape to keep up with them.
Well, but I want to impact, I've never once told my kids, hey, let's go do a workout. But they see me in Lakeland, we'll go down there. All of my kids will be like, hey, I'm going to work out with you, and they're doing their own thing. We're not loading them up with a barbell. We're not, making them do anything, but they want to do it. So then I'm doing a workout, and I just look over, and they're doing it, right? Well, then the hunting now, too, I've been out 6 or 7 times, and my kids have been with me 5 of the times. And Trice was with me when we harvested a doe the other morning, and he was fired up. And it's awesome. They want to be with me, and that's what I want, right? So I want to impact them from the physical side of hey, want them to be in better shape and just, a lifestyle of fitness, but then also the outdoors. It's just in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
I think to your question, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but there's workout programs out there for getting outside and everything. But man, and I've been fortunate to work out a decent amount in my life. But
Oh, really? I never would have guessed.
Pull them sleeves up.
Thank you.
Try
But
to
they
cut him
break
down
you.
as
They
much
break
as
me,
possible.
right?
Got it.
Like I get started. I find myself getting started, and then 3 weeks in, it is a lifestyle that, and maybe I'm just not tough enough. I just can't continue. My body is breaking down. And
How old are you?
33.
Yeah, it's
right?
accurate. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But
Over the hill.
I think my question is like, if you're not a dude that's already just getting it, like how much is too much, right? Like what is the proper level of training? If a guy's coming out west on his first elk hunt, like is it just 7 days a week to failure every day, and that's the mentality you should have, or is there a middle ground to get you out in the field?
Yeah, and so I feel like that's something that we have, or we've kind of like, we've got the background of, we have the CrossFit gym that we've had for 15 years, and we've got our youngest, remember we talked yesterday, is 5 years old, and our oldest is 83 or 84 years old. So like we have the full range, and so we've been able to see, hey, what can some people do? And like you're at a very entry level, and we've kind of, on what we're doing now, is like putting a little bit of science behind that instead of just hammering guys all the time, which you still need to do, right? You've still got to like prepare, because there is a mental aspect of it. Anybody who's been out west, like you got to be able to grind, because there are, those days where it's up, down physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And so you've got to have those days. But then also, like, we know that 4 or 5 weeks is about as hard as you can push, and then you maybe need to take a week where you just kind of, hey, like, let's move still. Starting out maybe 3 or 4 days a week, and then, you could bump it up. We were talking yesterday. I like to work out 7 days a week. It's my mentality. It's almost like it's something I have to do, right? It's just clear my head. It's got to get that hit, whatever it is. But for most guys, starting out 3 days a week is going to be a lot, And so you can, once you do a couple weeks of that, maybe add a 4th day. Hey, 4 days too many. Like there is, and that's one of the things we're trying to do is like, hey, we're going to build a community where guys can get on there, girls can get on there and talk and feel like, hey, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm feeling like this, any help there. So that's what we're trying to do, is take the kind of approach we've done with CrossFit of like, hey, we know our program's the best, but also the community side of like, hey, let's ask some questions and do some stuff like that too.
Yep. Yeah, and the Thursdays for us is usually a off-ish day.
So Thursdays and Sundays.
Yeah. So, and to answer the question, as a normal, average 43-year-old guy, working out with him, I know he works out 2 days a week. I can usually
two times a day.
I can go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday usually and work out with him, but by Thursday, I'm probably just taking off completely, just because. I mean, I can't do it anymore. Like my body's worn down. I need a day. I need just a rest day completely. So it is listen to your body, but we do take Thursdays, Saturdays, and as like active recovery, and then Sundays is usually just completely off.
Yep.
So we have that broken in there pretty good.
All right, I got a question. So I'm thinking
I have
about
a football
like the
question
audience.
for you about tonight, Coach.
We're going to punt on first down. They'll never expect it.
So trying to like maybe compare it to hunting. So if you got somebody that's never hunted and they've got aspirations to be a big game hunter, you kind of figure out a path that they'll start small game hunter.
Yep.
So I'll say the same thing with getting fit or a better version of you. What's that first step look like?
Doing something. Doing anything.
Okay.
Like moving 3-4 days a week. When I was early on in CrossFit, I was like, you have to do CrossFit. The only way to get fitter is doing CrossFit. I'm not that mentality anymore. Like, I think CrossFit or some variation like ours is a little bit of CrossFit. There's a lot less gymnastics, a lot more grunt work, a little bit less super high intensity all the time, because that does wear you out. But, man, it's just getting started. Doing something is better than nothing. And then, start momentum, man. It's day after day. My personal kind of values are faith, family, fitness, right? And so every day I try to sit down at the end of the day and be as objective as possible. How did I do faith-wise? Did I get in the word, whatever? Did I do good? Mm-hmm. And try to give myself, 1 through 10. Same with family. Did I spend time, quality time? And then fitness. And then short memory when you do good, because next day it's a new day, and short memory when you do bad as well. Because then you got to just like, hey, we got to reset today. It's fitness, all that stuff is like, it just compounds, right? And so it's all about momentum and just do something, right?
Yeah.
20-minute walk, do that a couple days a week, add 30 minutes or add a little bit of weight, whatever you want to do.
I think a lot of times people are, including me, are intimidated by guys that are really good, that are kind of the leaders in the space.
Right.
I mean, it's like we're not having somebody that's not good at this, like being the spokesman for fitness.
Right.
It's always somebody like
Right,
you.
yeah.
and sometimes it's hard to be like, well, I can't be a professional, or I can't. And I appreciate what you said, because I mean that's kind of the way that I think about fitness. I don't talk about fitness,
right,
but it's like something that's high on my mind. It is to just do something, and I do some running, in the last 2 years have done some.
Yeah, we talked yesterday. It's
pretty disciplined, 3-4 times a week at a gym doing Stairmaster, just because I'm 45.
100%.
And man, I feel my body just kind of like
the
like
strength.
slowing
You said
down.
the strength was starting to fall off.
Yeah. And like just doing something is better than nothing.
I can tell you the frustrating thing with running with Clay is he's one of those guys that half a mile in, he goes, God, I'm tired. And you're like, oh, you're tired.
Good.
And you're like, and so you're like, okay, I'm kind of tired too. And then a mile in, he's like, oh, I'm tired. And like 3 miles in, he's like, oh, I'm tired. And you're like, when are you going to stop, man? And he just keeps grinding. Him and Giannis, they burned me one day on the mountain. We went for a little run before a go-to-market meeting, and I hung with them for for me, it was a long run. It was a 10-mile run, I think.
Yeah.
I hung with them for like
That's a
8.
long run.
And finally, I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom.
I'm tired.
I got to tie my shoes. I got to do something other than run.
I need an excuse.
Yeah.
I gotta
go home. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, let's talk about football for a minute. Now,
Coach.
Coach,
Yeah.
you went to the University of Tennessee.
Yep.
And what did you study there?
Art.
But
Yeah.
you're from Virginia.
Correct.
But you're a big Vols man.
Big time.
And your
So I
wife.
suffered through, and my wife went here for veterinary.
Yeah.
She became a veterinarian.
So I mean, like, what's it like? What's it like to be wearing the orange?
Oh, it's good, especially on a day like today. I mean, this is third Saturday in October. That'd get any bigger.
So
we need a Saturday like we had in 22.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what will they do if they beat Alabama today? Like, I've heard it said twice now.
The goalpost will come down.
You think
Yeah.
so again?
In the water?
It could be.
Okay.
Okay, so we're right here on the Tennessee River.
Because we got the playoffs sort of
Locked
it's
if
rest-
you win this. Yeah.
If we win this,
Still got to play Georgia.
we still got to play Georgia. But if you can go 10-2,
You got an SEC guy right here, of
yeah,
course.
you
He's
go
gonna,
10-2, you've got a good
Yeah,
shot
I'll give you
at
that.
making it.
How late is the
I'm
Georgia
looking
game?
over at his shirt right now. We
Let's
lost.
go.
one-
Let's
we,
go.
we got one of those losses there, so we were hoping it would just be Alabama and Georgia.
How late is the Georgia game? That's the hard part, too, is you got to time your losses correctly,
Right.
Like,
I think it's a night. Is it a night game today, or is it same time?
no, I'm saying, like, when do you guys
season.
play Georgia?
Oh, it's at Georgia. I think it's a day game.
Oh, at Georgia.
No, like,
Yeah, it's
what,
when in the season?
When the season, sorry.
We've got a bye next week, then Kentucky, then I think Georgia.
So that's early enough.
What I thought was cool is that if they, sometimes when they win,
This is a huge.
tear down the goalpost, bring it to the Tennessee River, and throw the
Throw it in there.
goalpost in
Yeah.
the river.
No kidding.
Right out there.
I
What
wonder
do they
if
do when they lose?
Vandy, that would be the second time because Vandy did it to them
Carried it
2
down.
weeks ago. Vandy
Yeah.
beat Bama,
Carried
and they
it down.
carried it to
Down
the
that.
Cumberland. So
Yeah.
Which is a much further
I
walk.
love that.
much
man.
further
further
walk.
walk.
Yeah.
I was
Like
thinking about
soccer.
crappie structure down on the bottom.
And we've got 102,000
Fish on them.
people.
Yeah.
When they
They
stormed
had like
the field.
50
Yeah.
tops.
So they covered like half of the field when they stormed.
Yeah.
it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Brent, what kind of shirt are you wearing there?
Oh, well, this
What
is
were you
cash.
doing 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I was celebrating.
Were you at the game?
I was not.
Do you know who they're playing today?
They're playing LSU.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good. You got an LSUer over here.
Really?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
from
Josh
I
is
didn't
Louisiana.
take you for a
Louisiana.
communist, but welcome aboard.
He's French.
I'm from Baton Rouge. That's literally
He's
all
French.
that's there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
But
all good. We'll see.
we're glad you're here. We
Yeah.
get one opportunity. Every now and then, a blind hog literally finds an acorn.
Literally.
And that's what we did
Tennessee
2
was
weeks
our
ago.
acorn.
Well, during
Tennessee
baseball
was
season,
our acorn.
I'd send him texts all the time when Tennessee was winning,
Oh,
and I'd
yeah.
get everything sarcastic back. So
Yeah.
as soon as we lost Arkansas, I just
Hey,
He
I almost wore my Notre
deleted him
Dame.
out of my contract.
I almost wore my Notre Dame baseball jersey here but I didn't. Because
Now-
last time we were here,
Yeah.
we were
Now,
there.
Rich, but you're not a Tennessee fan.
No, I'm a Notre Dame fan. My grandpa went to Notre Dame. My family's Catholic and Irish, so I've been stuck with Notre Dame my whole life.
So even
you
though
know?
you've been here for
Pretty well
30
the law,
years,
Yeah, it's been rough, Yeah, no, I mean, I tried to get behind Tennessee when they were bad for a while because I could tolerate the fans. And then as soon as they started winning again, I was like, man, you guys are just obnoxious, you know? Like, that's the hard part. Like, you know, like,
we went through a hard
I get it.
time for
I get it.
a
I mean,
Wow.
I'm a Notre Dame fan and a Detroit sports fan, so don't talk to me about hard times. You know? Like,
yeah. You can
I've
talk
had
about
37 years of hard times.
Rich, you got to be
The
careful.
lines
We
look
still
good,
got to
though.
get out of here,
That's
man.
true. That's true. That's true.
You know, the good thing about being from Arkansas, and this is true, we have no professional sports teams.
That's true.
We have one bigger Division I school. There are other Division I schools, but without a doubt, everybody in Arkansas is rooting for the Razorbacks. Like when I think about Alabama having
Auburn.
a divided
Auburn, yeah.
divided state,
Yep.
it's kind of weird to me to think that you would have that kind of vitriol against like people in your own state, you know,
Yeah.
with like Alabama and Auburn and all this. But in Arkansas, man, that's all we got.
That's all you
so
got.
when we
And you had
beat,
John Daly in golf for a long time.
we had him for a while.
Still got him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah. But no. So as you all know, we usually on the render, and will today, we talk about the last podcast that came out. Has anybody else got anything else they want to say before we talk about Osceola? Nothing?
Can Brent zip up that cash shirt?
It's hot.
No,
man.
no.
Like,
Keep
it's
that
hot.
down,
No,
buddy.
there's no air moving in
It's hot.
here.
Keep
Yeah,
that
I just
there.
gotta keep this flowing.
Keep that down. No, this I told Hunter it'd been cool if we were at like Florida State. Florida
Oh,
State
that would have doubled.
Seminoles.
That would have doubled.
And then we were talking about
yeah.
Osceola.
Yeah.
This series I've been working on it for a long time. I think I read the first book about Osceola like a year and a half ago. And sometimes these series, people ask me a lot of times like, how long do you work on a series? And they're all different. Sometimes they come together real quick, but then other times they're like long and drawn out. This one was long and drawn out, and it took us that long to find the right people to tell the story. And sometimes I'll start a series that ends with me, well, in my mind, a potential series, and I never do it because I never find the right people.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that might be what happened with Osceola.
But you found the right person.
I did. And even there's going to be a new guest later. We talked to one of the Florida Seminoles, and then I had known Sterling Harjo for a while, and so I knew he was going to be great. But he's not a historian. He's a Seminole, and just kind of knows. You know, I was really interested in how he would have viewed Osceola. And then we found Jake Tiger, this young guy in Oklahoma, which was a great help. But Patricia Wickman, she's retired and was like, Josh Spillmaker helped me a lot on this one. She was very difficult to find. She's not in the.
She seemed kind of like.
Yeah, I already.
She
Is
corrected
she
you
a
a
nice
lot.
person? Or?
Yeah. Man, she totally is. Like she's
She reprimanded you twice.
I mean,
She
right
was-
out of the gate
She was
with
like,
the ashtray.
"Whoa,
Yeah.
put your drink on the coaster." I was like, "All right, Mom, sorry." I felt like it hit me hard.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
sorry."
well,
I was already
the
out.
only reason I could share that with the world, that section, was because of how wonderful a lady she
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
She was so excited that I was there. But I really appreciate that kind of frankness.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
She
Then
was
there's
just
no
like- she was
weird.
like, "Don't do that."
Don't do
Yeah.
that.
And they're like,
Yeah.
Yes,
Then you
ma'am.
no
know.
problem.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's like
So-
take your shoes off at the door
I
before you
said
come
it.
in.
I said it, and I meant it. I interview a ton of people, and of all different types of people, she was, and I'll go ahead and say it, the most passionate, knowledgeable, and able to communicate about her sphere of expertise than anybody I've ever dealt with.
She was sharp.
And she's been retired for years. I don't want to say how old she is, but I better not do that.
No,
But
you get in trouble.
She's retired.
You get in trouble again.
So, but I mean, just sharp as
She
a
was sharp.
tack.
Yeah.
And I'm still a little bit nervous about like how I did. Like we kind of had to convince her that we were going to handle this story with
correctly,
care.
yeah.
And she was very concerned about us getting it right, you know.
Yep.
And so, but she was a wonderful, wonderful lady, and we'll be hearing from her on the next two episodes.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and foreshadow a bit So the second podcast is basically going to be about the war years of Osceola, when he actually retreated into Florida, and all the stuff they did was just wild. The third episode is going to be about. I usually don't do this, Rich. I'm doing this for you.
For me,
because you're the world's fittest athlete.
Formerly.
We're going to do a whole podcast on Osceola's death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Like the aftermath or just the
there's all kind of like.
Conspiracy behind it, or
Let me just. I want to
Okay, I
give
don't
him
wanna ruin it.
Should I
Yeah, I
give
don't
him a
wanna
spiel like I did you yesterday at dinner?
Give him a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Osceola he ended up going to prison. He was tricked by the American government and captured, and went to prison. While he was in prison,
which president would that have been?
no, we can't go
We
there.
can't go.
That's
Sorry,
way
sorry.
too
Oh,
far.
sorry.
Keep your mouth shut.
All right, my bad.
The
Shut up when you're talking to me.
he was in prison in South Carolina, and they took him to a play in Charleston, like a Broadway play. And when he went into the play, he was viewed. He's a prisoner of war.
So they just
They
paraded
took
him on the
him
stage.
into the play. No, to watch the play.
Oh, okay, all right.
And when he was there, they applauded him. This is Osceola, the great king, the great war leader of the Seminoles. We're actively in war. It would be like us taking, in the 90s, taking Saddam Hussein
Jeez. And
out of prison to go watch a Broadway play, in the American public going, we love this guy.
really,
Yeah, so weird, because he was a global. He had global fame, and that to me points back to what I tried to paint a picture of, is how the American public viewed these Native American leaders, which is such a weird philosophy.
such a weird, muddy.
We needed to get rid of them and take their land and do whatever it took to displace them, but we treated them like comic book characters.
Yep.
Like mythical creatures, and which is so wild.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe that's all I should give. But he ends up dying in prison, and to this day there is still an ongoing search for Osceola's head. That's all I'm going to say.
Did you tell him about the portraits of the artists that would stack up?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it. Yeah, when he was in prison, the currency of the day for people to engage, visually. They didn't have photography, they didn't have video, but people
Artists would
painted
come in,
portraits. Like, it was big time.
Yeah.
You would have portraits painted of your family and your grandfathers, and that's all they had. And I mean, the greatest artists in the country flocked to South Carolina, to that prison, to paint Osceola. In the last days of his life, he spent modeling. He would put on his best clothes and all his accoutrements, and all. He had all kind of little things that he wore, big ostrich plume, and he literally, George Catlin finished that most famous painting that I put on Instagram 2 days before Osceola died in prison.
Really?
Yeah.
And that type of behavior, it seems like they knew they were a part of a big part of history in the moment. And I think sometimes we don't do that right now.
Yeah.
But like, to take him and be detached enough to take him to a play to show off to everybody is saying, like, this guy is going to be living infamy forever, right? He's a part of our history, and he's still alive. It's still happening. And then you got all those painters that are like, this is happening now.
Yeah.
I think we lose sight of that a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's just super interesting.
Yeah, and he was only 34 years old.
And he didn't look sick in that picture either. And then he died. I noticed that right off.
Yeah.
It was a painting. It wasn't,
Hey, make me look good. Hey, make me look good.
So what the way we'll talk about this is I just kind of go around and just tell me what stood out to you, like just what was interesting, or maybe what you didn't know, or how much you knew about Osceola before, or talk about my guests. Sterling Harjo. Would you have known who Sterling Harjo was?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I didn't really give him a proper introduction. Sterling Harjo is a filmmaker. He just was nominated for is it an Emmy? When they give the movies,
one of those,
Oscar. Like, he is a up and coming. He just got a big time award in the it wasn't an Emmy. yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah,
So
he's cool.
he was, but it was cool hearing him. But anyway, Hunter, what stood out to you?
I mean, I'd probably say getting pushed out of Alabama during the Muskogee Creek era, and just what was going through their minds and the establishment and how things were set up. What Tecumseh's influence and things like that.
Yeah, wasn't that cool?
Yeah. You know, you kind of wish you knew somehow, like, did these paths cross?
Yeah.
You know, you have no way of, I guess, really knowing. But, no, and again, the short timeline. He died at 34. He goes there at 10. So you're looking at a very small window of what brought him to popularity.
Well, I think what isn't really even debatable is that his family was heavily influenced by Tecumseh.
Right.
They would have been in his presence and heard Tecumseh speak.
Yeah.
And then these are the people that went and raised Osceola.
Yeah.
You know, so like whether he would have even seen Osceola, I mean, he would have been, like if he was born in 1804, which they really don't even know for sure if that's when he was born, but if he was born in 1804, Tecumseh for sure came in 1811, so he would have been like 7 years old.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, 7 years old. He would have just been a
Kid, a trice.
He
My
would have
son running around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might have
Obsessed
known
with squirrels, you know?
Yeah, exactly. He would have known something was happening that was cool.
Yeah, but
he wouldn't have been paying attention probably.
your brain's not processing in that at that situation. Well, nowadays.
But that I almost had my wife as a little insert guest, but it was a little too deep of a rabbit hole. Misty, she studies a lot about human development and child development. And there was this big research project that just came out that highlighted the ages of 9 to 13 as the most important years for long-term identity. And what they did was there was a study about Japanese kids, and they raised people that had Japanese parents in America until the age of 9. And then their family moved back to Japan. And those kids, as they grew up, viewed themselves as Japanese. Okay.
Wow.
The other set of the
Test.
The test was there was a family kids that were raised in Japan from the age of 0 to 9, and then they moved to America from the ages of 9 to 13. And those kids viewed themselves as Americans. Do you see?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that,
because that's right where my kids are now. You know, like you're like, oh crap.
Like they right now are just trying
Sponges.
to figure who am I?
Yeah.
You know, they're
Am
just
I a
like
Vols fan or a Razorback fan?
That's right.
Go Irish.
That's right. So my wife told me about that, and I was going to have her on to tell that story, but it was super fascinating because you wouldn't think that, would you?
No.
You would think the kids that were born in Japan and lived there till they were 9 would be consider themselves
For sure.
Japanese for the rest of their life, but it was actually opposite of that because that. So Osceola would have been
that age.
He was in the fire years of their family implementing that nativist revival of like we got to get rid of all this European influence. But all that stuff is so fascinating, and I love it when we bring in back a beargrease Hall of Famer. So, Rich, we have a
Hall of Fame.
legitimate beargrease Hall of Fame. We haven't done a Hall of Fame induction in 2 years.
Who was the
and
last?
We're about to start. The last one would have been
Hoyt?
that's a good question.
Was it
Holt
Hoyt
Collier.
Yeah.
I think a guy named Holt Collier from Mississippi. The beargrease Hall of Fame is interesting that some living guys that are still alive today, and then some historical characters like Daniel Boone, Holt Collier, Tecumseh is a beargrease Hall of Famer. But it's also, speaking of Tennessee, my dear friend Roy Clark in East Tennessee, Laurel Mountain Plots. He's still. My daughter hunted with them last week. But anyway, we're about to, the next time we get the regular render crew together, we're actually going to do a new beargrease induction. Or we're going to have
do you have a vote on the show, or do you just say, hey, no, we're doing this?
We have
a ballot?
I call, it's very
First
formal.
ballot. Okay.
It's very formal.
All right.
and I call to, I put the nominations on the table, and then we vote. But it's kind of got to be the people that are regular on beargrease.
Yeah, understand.
Because I don't know where Josh stands on some of this stuff.
That's
he's a losing,
From
LSU fan.
Yeah, that's true.
We can't have him, and then
Garrett doesn't even like football.
Garrett can't vote.
Whoa, don't throw me in that bucket.
Just kidding. The hockey
So
guy.
you pick your jury, and
you stack the court. You're stacking the court.
It works. Of course.
All right. Hey, it's your show. We always say at Mayhem, it's state-run media. We can put out whatever we want.
Exactly.
North Korea.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are going to have a new induction at some point in the next 2 months. So be ready for that.
Okay.
Josh, what stood out to you, man?
Something we talked about, and it's super unfortunate, but just for one, that their history is not necessarily written, right? It's spoken. So for one, you don't know. Stories get twisted.
Tradition.
And what's super unfortunate about it is all history that is written, you usually have a winner side and a loser side, right? There's two different. I'm glad I went first.
You son of a.
We've talked about it a lot,
Yeah.
but there's two different sides of it, and that perspective is always going to be different. So for really just all Native Americans, we have the stories that we don't know if is 100% accurate, and then we have this other side, which is a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
So just to hear this, and then she was an expert on it, and just to hear, just
passion.
It was really cool to hear that, because you don't know. You hear things, and it's like, well, you see that, but then you read something else. So it was super cool just to kind of hear that side of it.
Man, the analogy that we used to describe, I thought it was pretty powerful, and I use that analogy on myself. I mean, I'm the one who said it, but I was thinking about it like, what if somebody from another place
when
that
you
did
said
not
that, it made sense.
did not speak my language,
Right.
just observed my life for however long, and then they were the ones that wrote the history books about me and told about my motivations and what I did, but then they also wanted my land.
It's called social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, how accurate could it be?
Well, and to double down on Josh's point, it's like, as you were saying, you got the Florida Seminoles have one thought in view versus, say, the ones in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Saying completely different things.
Yeah.
So not only is it already not written, but you've got fractions of that.
Yeah.
Well, even in the written stuff, you got fractions, because you have to use today's perspectives, you have a right and a left.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you read one side, it's so tough.
Yeah.
And so think about adding 200 years to that.
Exactly.
Like, when they read about what's going on now, who are they reading?
Yeah. That's what I like to do on these, is just, there's no answer, but just it like makes you think about it from just a different perspective. You're just a little more empathetic towards people.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's what interests me is looking at a story that from one perspective to another could be completely different, and both sides are right.
Yep.
Like they're are good people or have the right motivation, but like the perspective on the story completely changes the way you see it. So it's like I'm sitting here from this chair as an Arkansas Razorback fan, and knowing that I'm right. Knowing that my team's the best team.
It's a tough life, though.
But it's possible that somebody could have a different view that would be equal to mine. It's really weird to me.
And more correct.
Rich, what stood out to you?
Man, we were talking yesterday. I've got I have an American history obsession. So I started reading the O'Reilly killing books, and one of them's Killing Crazy Horse. And so it goes through, it's not just about Crazy Horse, because he's kind of towards the end of, well, we'll say it, the eradication of Native Americans throughout the country. So, but it goes, geographical section by section, and I'm sure, and I don't remember because it's been a while since I read it, but Osceola was in there, I'm sure. And so you have that perspective, right? And so it paints Andrew Jackson as this villain, right? He was this terrible, awful human being. Well, then now I have this, reading those books, I have this, all right, I'm going to read a biography on every U.S. president. And so when I get to Jackson, I have this kind of like bad taste in my mouth.
Tainted.
Yeah.
And I read that book, and I'm like, from his perspective, and I'm just putting this as me, putting my viewpoint from reading the book, God, family, country. And I'm like, that aligns with my views. You know, did he do it right? Absolutely not. But it goes back to that perspective of like,
Who's telling the story?
who's telling the story, right? And you know, you look at today, right? And we have this crazy election coming up. We won't get political, but it's like there's two sides to every story, and there's bits on both sides that are right, and there's bits on both sides that are wrong.
Yeah.
And so, man, it is so when you're listening to her, you're like, yeah, this is, like I'm behind this. And then I step back and I read from it wasn't even Andrew Jackson's perspective. It was a third party, but you're just like, I believe in a lot of those. So it's so hard to then 100, 200 years ago have that different. And so it's just so hard, right? You just come off Columbus Day and everybody's politics on that. And you're just like, hey, history's rough.
Yeah.
And both sides, there's bad and there's good, right?
And it places that importance on like who's telling that
who's
story.
telling the story.
Because like Dr. Wickman, her passion behind it, you kind of sort of
Hey,
can't
I'm
help
with you.
but go
I'm
down
with
that
you.
road.
Yeah, exactly.
So whether it's Osceola or somebody else, it's when you get that passionate storyteller behind it, it starts to skew you.
Yeah.
But that's why history's so important.
Right.
There was whole cancel every history everywhere, and you're like, nah, man, we need to have some perspective, not believe everything we read, obviously, but it's just it's history's important.
Yeah. This will be on one of the next episodes, but I had an interesting little section of conversation with Sterling Harjo, who is a Seminole Creek in Oklahoma. And basically he started talking about the conflicted position that he has. He's like, man, I love America. I mean, he's more American than me. He's like, he loves America.
Yeah.
But he's like, but it's kind of weird because America literally tried to kill every member of all my ancestors, like wanted them dead
In different ways too,
And so he's like, and here we are in schools, like pledging allegiance to the flag. And he's like, it was always kind of weird to me. But he had such when you hear it, it's real interesting because he's not embittered or anything. But it's still very real. I mean, even today inside the tribes, I mean, sometimes it's like, man, that stuff happened so long ago. That's a long time ago. Man, the tribes in Oklahoma are
fresh.
Well, they're not even looking back on fresh stuff or, the old stuff. They're looking back on, and I certainly don't speak for them, but just today struggles with their sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because it's a real weird, unique situation in Oklahoma where there's, I don't know how many different sovereign nations there are in Oklahoma. If you drive into Oklahoma, you're driving into a different country.
Aren't they trying to sue for some land too? There was something going on.
There's a lot always going on over there.
Yeah.
I think it shows, man, it depends on how far back in history you look, like his sentiment about pledging allegiance to the flag. Then, let's take into consideration why all of us are here right now and making the jump across the pond and what was going on over there. And we were trying to get away from people doing to us what we ended up doing to other people. And it's just like, you can keep doing that all the way back to the first couple hundred people that were here, right? And it's just there's always somebody trying to take what they don't have, and there's always somebody giving it up. But that's just the way that history works, right? It just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it good.
No.
It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it easier, but
Makes it important, though.
It is a reality of history.
Yeah. Brent, what stood out to you?
I liked it. Forever in history books and movies or whatever, Native Americans were portrayed as savages, and that's what they were referred to as.
Right.
But they had enough sense and enough self-awareness to know that they could settle a dispute on the battlefield or they could settle a dispute on the ball field.
Wasn't that interesting?
That was cool.
And they played that game, and there may have been some folks that died in it, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, that's really taking one for the team, literally.
Yeah.
But they're settling disputes like that back then, instead of wiping out whole communities, they settled it there. And if we're going by that creed, that example that they did, I guess we now own Tennessee.
This is now Arkansas too.
I was watching how he was kind of trying to bring that.
Well done. Well done.
I am the captain now.
Look at me.
So when LSU wins today, then we conquer
Then we'll
Arkansas
work for
and
you.
Tennessee. I played games.
No,
like
I didn't
that.
count with LSU.
But that was
far.
was really interesting to me that was that far back that they had enough foresight to think, we're wasting each other. But if we're going to duke it out, and there's no getting around it, let's play this game.
There was Dr. Wickman talked about that a little bit more that I just didn't have time to put on there, but that game was called. Some of them called it the little brother of war. That was what they referred
Did
to
you
it
describe
as.
how?
Yeah, I was about to say the rules man.
It was almost in these conversations. I love it because a lot of times there's just this little tangent that I didn't see coming, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
She wasn't
I'm sure
even
we can
wanting to
Google
talk
it.
about ball. She was wanting to talk about how they didn't have long-term cities built, like they were nomadic, and she was using an example
That
and
was an
said when a ball pole gets struck, they'll move, then never go back.
Right.
Because bad luck.
And then I was like, wait a minute, what's a ball pole? And
Yeah.
then she kind of went into that, but so I actually don't know what it was or how they did it.
I think that's important to the story, though, because, to his perspective, us saying savages or hearing savages when you're growing up or whatever, it's not as common now, but that's shows you one way they weren't savage. So it's
Yeah,
almost
100%.
like it would have been cool, Well, I'll Google it. I'm sure we can find it on
Oh,
Google.
yeah. I'm sure it's
There's
somewhere.
a Wikipedia about it somewhere, I bet.
Yeah. Garrett, what stood out to you?
Man, I'd love to give you like some romantic, nuanced perspective. I've been thinking about it. But probably one of my takeaways, I have been listening to John Anderson for a long time and had no idea what that song was talking about or who he was
Are you
referring
serious?
to
Seminole Wind.
Really?
Yeah.
with Osceola. Like I've sang that part of the song, heard Osceola cry. No, I just never
I was thinking
even
they were
thought
talking
to
about
look
the
it
turkey.
up. Right?
Turkey.
You thought it
I
was a
when
turkey?
when you said yesterday, hey, listen to the podcast for tomorrow, I was like, oh, cool. It's about the history of that turkey or something. I didn't know. And so I was
I'll
like,
be darned.
all right, learn something.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just, sometimes we're singing songs we don't know what we're talking about. And I'm from Montana, too. We got power like 2 years ago, right? So,
Thanks,
Still
Elon.
don't have internet.
That's
I
like a
just
new
got a
release.
kick out of
That's a
that.
new release for you. You just heard it.
that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Actually, right here. Come on.
Oh,
Look at that.
spiral
All
it back.
Here's the interesting behind the scenes. Oftentimes, I will. Well, let me go back even further. Garrett told me that a lot of big time Instagram or YouTubers will think about the thumbnail of the YouTube video.
Always.
Maybe even before they make the video. That song is what made me want to do
Really?
learn
interesting.
about
That's cool.
Osceola.
Heck yeah.
It was such powerful imagery. I did know it was a person I knew as a Seminole leader. That's
Yeah.
about all I would have known. And I was just like, man, if John Anderson
Yep.
said the ghost of Osceola was crying,
I'm in.
there's a story back there.
And Rich just thought that John Anderson was really in touch with how turkeys felt.
Yeah. Sure.
And so that was the spark point, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
cool.
envisioned like using that song because I'm really interested in where some of this, whether it's hunting or in this case just kind of unique history, touches mainstream like pop culture. That's interesting to me, and so that we're still talking about Osceola, but the Tecumseh series, I would not have known much about anything about Tecumseh, nothing.
Huh.
And I was reading a book, and it talked about this Shawnee leader, and that his name meant panther crossing the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard what his name meant, and on the night Tecumseh was born, a comet flashed across the sky. That's the lore of Tecumseh's birth, and they called him Panther crossing the sky.
Was he the one that his brother was a drunk?
Well, his
Yeah.
his brother
'Cause
was
he did
an
a lot of
alcoholic,
the
but his brother was also a major
political figure, right?
Well, he was more of a religious figure.
Okay.
Yeah, Tenskwatawa. But when I heard
Tenskwatawa,
about
yeah.
Panther crossing the sky, I was like, I'm going to learn about that guy. And then he ends up, it's just
Yeah.
such a fascinating story of who Tecumseh was. What did y'all think about all the other beargrease characters coming into play? Crockett,
Love it.
and then Tecumseh, and then Boone.
Yeah.
What'd y'all think?
You got a little offended.
You
didn't
were
you?
offended.
Well,
Triggered. He was
I was
triggered.
triggered.
Triggered. You got a little triggered.
I was triggered.
I can see that, though.
Do you think Boone had a Shawnee wife? Do you remember the series?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Zero documentation.
Yeah.
This much.
I mean, I think she brings a lot of really good points that it wasn't a thing.
She was confident that it happened.
Oh, I know.
When that came up, I remember this, and you can go back and listen to that render. Man, you jumped all over me for saying, "Man, that's probably just the way it was back then." You're like, "No. He was a religious man. He wouldn't do that." And I thought then, man, you are a product of your.
Hey, listen.
Wait a minute. You are a product of your environment, and it very well could have been absolutely not abnormal at all to do that. And it could have been a position to where he was. It not being abnormal, and also it could have been something that fit him into that community to be
got him more
allowed.
excited.
Let me know what Alexis thinks about your doctrine. Because
tell you,
listen,
that ain't gonna fly. That ain't gonna wash right now.
well, but listen. This is what I was thinking, and this is, I can just tell you, this is true. If I'm captured by some foreign army, and the only way for Clay Newcomb sitting today, married to Misty Newcomb, with the value system that I have, the kids that I have, the lifestyle that I have, the biblical doctrine
It's different.
that I have. No, it's not.
Yes,
it's
it
the
is.
same. And you say, you got to take this woman or die, I'm going to be like, dude,
Die.
let's go. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
that's today, and
Yeah.
I'm the same
The
way.
Bible
and everybody
didn't
said-
change.
I understand. Oh, come on now. It absolutely did.
I
not.
got it.
Hear my wife
It's
go
the
on,
same
man.
today,
No
yesterday, and
excuse. You
forever.
should
Well, no,
right?
I mean-
I'm just kidding.
My point is I think the point is strong, is that like I'm not saying he had the same
But
belief system as me.
You have to put yourself. You got to tell the story right. That's what you would do.
Exactly.
You don't know what Daniel Boone did.
But
He's the same as Daniel Boone.
That's where I'm getting passionate about defense of Boone's character. I think if you put Osceola in prison and you told him to defy his culture at a very base level, he would have said, "I ain't doing it. I'm dying." That's
Yeah.
what he said.
Yep.
That's what he did. That's what Tecumseh. I mean, like people that have a
Passion.
rock hard value system that's connected to their culture will die for it. Garrett? What, you
I think he
Boone-
absolutely did it. Yeah, I just
Daniel Boone was a player.
Well,
I think it was a different time. I know you have like a very strong value system, and that's been shaped by the world that you've lived in from the time you were born until now. And I think trying to insert yourself, like if you took that same narrative, it was 5 or 7 out of the first 9 presidents owned slaves.
right.
Okay,
Right,
would you own a
yeah.
slave right now? But do you think George Washington had a different value system than you did foundationally? Right? And so I think it's like really hard to say that
Product of the time.
that Daniel Boone, from the time he was born to going and being inserted in that tribe, would have made him not assimilate or do something like that. I just don't think we could say
Yeah.
that he wouldn't.
That's a good point.
Where was he from 9 to 13?
Good point. He was
Japan.
That's what I got from this whole podcast.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I think it's just a fun mental
Well,
exercise.
and you've seen it with people. I mean, people do fall, right? So
Yeah.
We are people.
yeah, you
right?
can't put it not to trigger you any further, Clay. But I've seen and I've seen it personally. Just people strong in their faith make bad
Sure.
decisions. So
Sure.
who knows?
Yeah, and we don't really know a lot about Boone's faith, but just the assumption that
If you were Daniel
because-
Boone.
well, just the assumption that because it was the trend of the time that you would do it, I think is unfair.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Valid.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's all. Okay, now, how much time where are we at? I have no concept of time.
I mean,
How long have we been going?
We're blown over by 2 hours technically, but
Oh, we always go over an hour.
Yeah.
We're good. We're good.
I'm not worried about it.
No, neither
Chili,
am I.
are you worried
I just
about
wanted
it?
to make sure we hadn't been going like an hour and a half. Okay.
You haven't pushed record yet.
Do it again.
Hey, can we do this whole conversation but condensed?
Yeah, just like
Just as natural but
Yeah.
condensed.
Oh wow. Yep. No, it was interesting to me too. So we did a big series on Crockett, and Crockett, who was, it's so not politically correct to like say this, but he was known as an Indian hunter, which is a wild thing to say and think, but like at that time, that's what people became known for. Political figures like would get known in these wars against Native Americans and would gain clout and status and whatnot. He was known as an Indian hunter, but he actually wasn't. Like today, I bet if you polled a bunch of people here, now these people would know who Crockett is because we're in Tennessee.
right.
Tennessee, yep.
But
he'll run in the end zone when a
but
touchdown.
but Crockett, he did fight in the Red Stick War, so he fought against the Creeks
Under Andrew Jackson.
and under Andrew Jackson, but that incident of watching that
was crazy.
hut burn really impacted him for the rest of his life.
No more potatoes.
He would not eat potatoes. That was what was said. But then, he recounted in his autobiography about how like he wasn't cool with that. And then later in his political career, when it would have been very advantageous for him to side with Andrew Jackson and everything, he vehemently opposed the Indian Removal Act. And then even saying, I'm doing this so that looky there at
Smokey.
that blue tick dog. That's not the real Smokey, is it?
No.
I bet that
we'll
one's
pretend.
pampered somewhere, I bet.
Nice looking blue tick. He said, so in Judgment Day, I'm found on the right side, which was a pretty progressive position because, obviously most of America was okay with this and was behind it, and it probably was one of those social deals that if you went and talked to an individual and said, hey, what do you think about us moving all these people out of their home and sending them? They might have said, man, it's kind of sad. But then it's like, but what's your stance on the political part of it? They would have been like, well, I kind of want to live in Alabama,
Yep.
It's one of those deals where
The human side of it
probably
is detached a little bit from the political side of it.
Yeah.
A lot like today.
And I think Crockett, he saw those people getting killed,
Yeah.
and then he did have rapport with.
Well, it's perspective too. Like he was in it. He saw the suffering. When you're detached from it and you don't see that, you don't see that stuff every day. You're like, that doesn't happen, or it's not
everything
that bad.
changes once it becomes personal.
Once it's real.
Yeah.
It's a lot different written on, in the newspaper.
Oh yeah, you're like, there's no human aspect of
Yeah.
it. You just read over it. It's just a headline, or it's just something you see, and you're like, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. And then when you see it in person, you see the suffering, you're like, oh dang,
Yeah.
there's a human side to it.
Well, I felt like that was a redemptive moment in Crockett's life, and it's actually what spurred him to go to Texas, because he didn't get reelected because of that, partly because of that position and his stance against Andrew Jackson. And he was kind of ticked off and was like, you know what? I'm going to Texas. And he goes down to Texas and dies within 3 months in the Alamo.
Yeah.
But I also thought about, I almost didn't put that story in the podcast, and I'll tell you why. I knew that a lot of my Seminole Native American friends were going to listen to this, and I thought about, like, what if we told a story about your family? They got something like very gruesome and dark. It's so easy for us to, because here I am almost saying, like, telling this story, and at the end there was something positive, which I was saying this ended up being a place where Crockett kind of redeemed himself in my mind, his stance on Indian removal. Right. And, like, I bet if they were talking about my family, I would be like, that's a pretty nice spin.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I'm conscious of that kind of stuff. But anyway.
So will we hear any of those same guests in part 2?
All the
and
same
part
guests. And there'll be a new guest at some point.
Okay.
It was going to be a new guy.
The level of editing was impressive. Like that you had to go to all these different places and then interject that. That was way above my pay grade. If I podcast, I'm like, nah, dude, hit start, and when it's about an hour and a half, we're done. You know,
I mean,
that was impressive.
What the audience probably doesn't realize with Clay is when, like, some people will just have a mission of getting a podcast, and they start on one day and end on the next day, and then that's the podcast. Clay will go months getting feedback and sound bites about multiple podcasts he has in his mind from different people and different guests, and then it all comes together
cool.
like this, and it is intensive. I've never seen, and I'm just going to toot your horn for a little bit, I have never seen a podcast host, I know. I've never seen a podcast host, though, take more personal ownership in the edit and splicing together of a podcast than Clay. Like, it's really cool to watch.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yep.
No, and that's where I'm grateful to just having the opportunity to dedicate this much time. I mean, like, imagine if you were working 9 to 5, stocking groceries,
and then had to train.
I
did that early on, not stocking groceries, but yeah, it was hard.
You wake up
then a
every day
family
and think about training.
Yeah,
I
think about that.
I get to wake up every
cool.
day and think about content for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, and
it shows. Like it was cool.
well, and telling these stories has been, I love it. I really do. I love it.
Did she go on? She talked about that figurine that her friend found in Belgium that was made in Italy.
Yeah.
Did she go into any more, like, off camera about, like, his world renowned popularity other than just within?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, you start looking around and you see a lot of stuff, not just from Osceola, but just like Native American kind of totems in different parts, and just all over. It's all over.
Yeah.
Everywhere. But we are going to talk about the Florida State Seminoles, being a college football
And it being accepted,
mascot.
right, as a mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty passionate about it, too.
Yeah. There's a pretty interesting story there. But, well, man, again, we're in Knoxville. Game's going to start here in a little bit.
I got something for you.
Okay.
James, Peter, Nancy, Paulie, William.
We didn't do trivia. Oh, my gosh.
Now you just have to ask, what is that?
Those are the
I
What
can't
did I
believe
just
it.
lay
I can't
out?
believe
That
it.
was the
We're going to do
lineage.
speed trivia.
All right.
The first person to spout it off wins.
Okay.
I can't believe it. I always do this. I got to have somebody
Yeah.
keep me on track.
Yeah.
Trivia. Okay. Whoever gets the most points, and just whoever I says gets the point, get the point. No hassling. Okay. Number 1. What Spanish word?
Cimarron.
Bam.
Dang.
1
Seminole,
point. You keep your own score. The question was, what Spanish word
Seminole.
is the name Seminole taken from? Cimarron means the wild ones.
Yeah.
Which
Nice.
is pretty cool. Number 2. Okay, Josh Spillmaker made these questions. I think he made them for his young kids.
Oh.
They're pretty basic.
Oh, well,
here. I was looking for
thank you.
Josh.
Took
I was
it all
looking for
away.
something a little more
Then
philosophical.
maybe we'll
Took
get
all that
one.
away from you, honey.
Okay, where was the Osceola statue gifted to Dr. Patricia Wickman, purchased and made? From
Made
where?
in Italy.
Okay, that's half
Belgium.
of it.
Belgium.
Somebody put those two together.
Belgium, Italy.
Okay, point goes to Josh.
He already said it.
Did you say it?
Well, he was asking about
I
it
asked it
earlier.
earlier.
So
I feel like these are unfair. He already knows them all.
Well, okay, you get that point. You get the point. All right,
His wife's a doctor.
1-1.
And he's
Okay,
the coach.
number 3. Okay, now this one, just raise your hand and I'll call on you, okay? Who can give a decent explanation of the genealogy of Osceola leading to his English name, which was, so the answer will hold his English name and the genealogy. Garrett, do you have an answer?
Billy Powell.
Okay, that was his English name.
And he was 1/8 native of Scottish origin.
Okay, well, that's not, I'm asking for a decent, well,
The names.
what are the
Oh,
names?
you want just what I just said.
Yeah.
what he just said.
James, was his great-great-grandpa. You actually got it wrong on your podcast. It was his great-great-grandpa.
In your face.
Starting in
Touche.
1716.
Touche.
James and Peter was his son. Then Nancy was Peter's daughter. Then Polly was Nancy's daughter that hooked up with William,
Yep.
which was Billy's dad.
Jeez.
That was impressive.
That was real
impressive.
impressive.
That's
Very
why
good.
Garrett
Is
is
it
my
written on your
boss.
hand somewhere?
All right.
Yeah.
We're giving you 2 points.
Yeah, that was worth like
Are we
5
tied?
Oh, it's a tie game.
This
now.
y'all can get your own podcast if you want to make the rules. This is my rules, okay?
That's like those sandwiches, Steve.
Okay. This is a low hanging fruit. Y'all be
That's a
ready. Put
softball.
hands on the buzzers. What does Osceola's name mean?
Oh, the black
Black
drink.
drink.
Oh, yeah. The name of the podcast.
name
The
of it.
Black
Drink
Drink
Singer.
Sing.
Who said it?
Singer.
The correct
Black
answer
drink
is Black Drink Singer.
Black drink singer.
Did you say
Hunter
it?
got it.
Okay. What's the score then?
3.
3,
2.
1, 2.
I got 6.
Got nothing.
Okay.
I feel like that one was a little shady.
I just know I have one more point than Tennessee does. I mean, Hunter.
Okay, this one is like way too hard. Josh turned the throttle
Okay.
all the way to the
All right.
top. I didn't even know who this was. Okay, who was the artist famous for painting the portrait of
Oh.
Osceola stabbing Payne's treaty with a knife?
That's a winner takes all there. Who does it?
I
The-
don't remember that one.
Sterling Harjo.
I remember that they disagreed that it happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And he said famously,
It's like a modern guy that was a
can't
chief
remember.
in the Seminole tribe. And Sterling stated his name. I don't think anybody's going to get it. I wouldn't have remembered. His name is Enoch Kelly Haney.
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
even ring a bell, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay.
Josh Billmaker.
Let's see. Last question. But there's actually 2 more questions. But we've already answered this one. So have hands on the buzzers. What percentage Muskogee Creek
1-8.
1-8.
do historians agree that
I got
Osceola
you.
was?
1-8.
Okay, and I gotta say one quick thing. Some of the Seminoles dispute some of the genealogy of Osceola.
The Floridians are the ones in Oklahoma.
The Floridians dispute.
Well,
Well, no, I guess it could be either way.
I can't. I don't. I'm not even going to go into that much detail, but there is dispute. Some people are like, no, he wasn't 7/8 Scottish.
Yeah.
So
That was interesting too. That him being part of the community had more
yeah.
weight than the actual
Right.
blood. You know, because we attach so much blood.
Yep.
Which is interesting. When you look at the portrait, I mean, you don't see 1/8 and 7/8 Scottish.
Yeah, for sure.
At
Did
all.
you like it when
That's what they look
Dr.
sick.
Wickman said you're looking at this all wrong?
Yeah.
He's like,
Oh,
you're focusing on what non-Indians focus on.
Yeah.
That was another time she
Yeah.
just
Got
like
you.
put me in my place.
Put your hand down.
She was
Put
like,
your hand down.
yeah.
Slap it.
She was like, quit talking. This is my podcast.
Shut up,
Clay.
boy.
Yep. All right. Last question. And right now the current score is 3-1 to 2.
3.
I got
He's
three. I got 3, bro.
What was the name of the village where Osceola was born?
Oh, I don't know. You can have it. I don't know.
It was said multiple times.
Muskogee Creek?
Muskogee.
No.
To
It's a
start
tough
with
one.
a T?
I would have
can't
had a
remember.
hard time with it. The correct answer is Tallahassee.
I knew there was a T.
It's in,
Yeah.
it's
Close to
in
Tallahassee-ish,
Alabama.
Tallahassee.
It's in
name-wise.
Alabama, and they
Yeah.
know right where the town was.
Tallahassee.
I'm not certain exactly what modern town is there, but
Okay.
that's where he was born. So congratulations,
Winner.
Well, it's
on
a
the-
tie.
Oh, it's a tie.
Wait,
We gotta go
you
to
tied?
Trying to
tiebreaker.
bring me down.
Yeah,
That's
there's
what you're
3.
doing.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a good tiebreaker we could do? We can't have a tie.
What was the
What
year
is
he
the
moved to
color?
Florida?
1814.
There it was.
Yeah.
Whoa. Did you know that was happening? I almost want to count
I
that
didn't even hear
question.
the
I
question.
was.
Oh, he
the
didn't
year
hear it. It's
the
not
year
fair.
he moved to
18.
yeah.
1814.
Would you have known that as quick as him?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because I knew it was.
You would have known it quicker than
18.
him.
No, I'm not saying quicker.
Come on, dude.
No, I'm
Yes. Get another question.
Get another question.
If he would have said, "Yeah, I would have got it quicker," I
Yeah,
would have. You know, this is a rare moment in the man's life when he's able to just like publicly harass his boss. Help me with another question.
What was Andrew Jackson's nickname? Old Hictor.
We have a winner! Congratulations! Congratulations. Congratulations. Great win.
What was Andrew
Hunter
Jackson's
Spencer is
house's
our
name?
winner.
Andrew Jackson's
Sorry,
house
Garrett. Didn't stand a
man,
chance.
it's just hard losing. First win.
Hey, thanks,
Hey,
guys. It's been
I
a
might
lot of
not
fun.
win over there, but I'm going to try to at least win.
Take what you
It's
can
been a
get.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rich
Appreciate
and
you
Josh.
guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brent, Garrett, Hunter.
you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate it,
Chili.
Appreciate it.